Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Christmas LACA webinar. We'll just leave it a couple of minutes as everybody arrives. We've got a good lineup of content for you this afternoon. We'll have a welcome and a quick end-of-year update from Judith, the National Chair, before she'll hand over to Stephen, who's going to then give you a short presentation on the LACA Allergens guidance before having a panel discussion with Jacquie McPeake from JACS, Megan Waring from Caterlink, and Rachel Ellis from Natasha Allergy Research Foundation, who he's been working with on the review of the guidance. We've then got a short video for you. We thought it'd be nice to see the grab and go winner from this year's main events dish demonstrators. So Angela will be demoing that and giving you the recipes for that and showing you the methodology, which will be great. And then finally, the infamous Christmas quiz from Anita. So people are beginning to, they're largely drifted in now. I think there'll be a few more as time goes on. So I will pass over to you, Judith, to give a quick update.
So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our last webinar of the year. I'm sure you're all counting down the days to the end of term. As Andrew has said, the main focus of this afternoon's webinar is the allergens presentation and obviously Anita's Christmas quiz. But before we start, I just want to use this opportunity to provide a quick update on what's been happening recently within LACA and the education catering arena. So the LACA Autumn Seminar was held in Kenilworth in November, which was a huge success, and it's always a great opportunity for colleagues, LACA partners, suppliers and operators to get together. Now, we used the seminar as a great opportunity to launch our Call for Action campaign, which highlighted the cost challenges, breakfast provision and cost of living pressures that the industry is currently facing. To date, we have received 670 organisation signatures on an open letter that has been sent to the Prime Minister, Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Secretary of State for Education, which highlighted the quality and the sustainability of school food services that is now under threat as a result of the rising cost of ingredients coupled with ongoing inflation, which has made it difficult to maintain the standards of school meals that our children deserve. There is a copy of the letter on the LACA main website if you want to have a look at it, and obviously if you haven't already signed it, we would be grateful if you would. So we're going to continue the Call for Action campaign in the new year, and we're currently working with Manara, who are LACA political advisors, on stepping up the campaign messaging. And on that part, we may need your help as well in terms of engaging with local MPs. We appreciate that obviously things are challenging at the moment, but recognise in April this year, the situation is not going to get any better. And now that we know the proposed increases for universal infant free school meals and free school meals for next year, as well as obviously the increase in the national insurance contributions that was announced in the budget earlier this year. This week we sent a letter to Stephen Morgan, who is the schools minister, to express our concern about the uplift on universal infant free school meals from £2.53 to £2.58, which is totally insufficient. It's made worse by that whilst it is backdated, that payment is not going to be made until the first quarter of the new financial year in 2025. And it's important to highlight that there's already already a local authority in his constituency that's going to be ceasing to operate their school meal service in 2026. In the letter, we gave an example where an additional 5 pence on a meal means that if there are 100 Key Stage 1 pupils in a school and they all take a meal on census day, that would equate to a mere £5 extra per day. I will leave you to work out obviously what you could buy for that £5 when you are feeding 100 pupils with their school lunch. We've asked for an urgent meeting with him and are currently awaiting a response. We're also working with the DFE to ensure that the proposed breakfast service is appropriately funded and meets the required standards as a standalone service. On a lighter note, we had a very successful National School Meals Week with a visit to Central Park Primary School by David Baddiel for his book launch. Michael Hales, the LACA Vice Chair, who is the authority that delivers the school meals and part and who is also part of Juniper Ventures, interviewed David, and the pupils certainly enjoyed asking David lots of questions. Midweek there was a chef's table event at LACA Ambassadors Mark Sargent's restaurant, promoting the hospitality apprenticeship that HIT Training have developed for LACA. As we head towards the end of term and we see the last of the Christmas lunches being served in our schools by frontline staff, on behalf of LACA Board and NSG, National Steering Group, I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone for your continued support and hard work to ensure that a healthy lunch is available for each child. So that's the update from me. I'm now going to hand over to Stephen Forster for the allergen presentation. Over to you, Stephen.
Thanks, Judith. Thanks, Judith, and good afternoon, everyone. So why me? I guess there's infinitely more qualified people than I am who can talk about allergies. But I guess that sort of the hat sits on my head because during my term as chair of LACA, we launched the LACA Allergens Guidance and Risk Assessment process. We set this up as a base standard for the sector for practitioners to build upon and use in their own scenarios. But it very much came out of industry-led discussions and workshops, probably during my term as vice chair, actually. And it was in response to the growing impact of allergens on our sector. So I remain holding the baby within the board and certainly within Member Services Working Group. I'm joined this afternoon by 3 colleagues who I mentioned are much more qualified than I am, and they've taken part in the most recent review of the guidance and the risk assessment process, and they'll take part in our panel discussion shortly. So just to sort of focus our minds a little bit, in February 2023, 13-year-old Hannah Jacobs died from a severe allergic reaction after drinking a hot chocolate from Costa Coffee. Hannah suffered from allergies to dairy, fish and eggs, and her mother had asked for soy milk, but the hot chocolate contained cow's milk. In July 2016, 15-year-old Natasha Edna Laperouse died on a flight after eating a pret-a-manger baguette she'd bought at Heathrow. She had a severe allergic reaction to sesame which had been baked into the bread, but wasn't listed on the ingredients label. These type of fatal events linked to food allergies seem to be occurring much more frequently. They appear in the headlines and they've driven a movement to make places like schools and other restricted environments nut-free. But are food allergies really on the rise, or is our knowledge of them merely increasing? I think back to when I first started working in schools 32, 33 years ago, and occasionally sort of you'd go into a school and the cook would say, "Oh, that one's mammy's been in, she can't have the custard with the dessert." And that was pretty much it. We didn't have anything any more formal than that. But that certainly has changed. And as I say, the incidence of allergies isn't unique to the UK. They're increasing around the world. So some of the stats that Allergens UK have produced for 2024. By 2026, 1 in 2 people in Europe will have at least one allergy. Currently, 1 in 3 people in the UK live with an allergy. And the UK makes the global top 3 for the highest reported incidence of allergies. allergies seem to be increasing at the rate of 5% a year. And in 2022, allergy was the most chronic reported health condition in the UK. And actually 8% of GP appointments relate to allergies. Thinking more of our world, in childhood, Allergy UK report for 2024 indicates that 40% of children in the UK have been diagnosed with an allergy. The 4 most common allergies in children are food, eczema, asthma, and hay fever. Almost 1 in 12 young children suffer from a food allergy, and they seem to be getting more and more common. This equates in our world again to around 2 children in every classroom. So can we just have the next slide, Andrew? So why did we set about doing the sort of whole guidance and risk assessment? Well, it was very much about sector leadership and a recognition that from LACA we want to support our members to be able to support those who have severe allergies by raising awareness in the food and drink business to ensure proper labelling and stop cross-contamination, by moving towards allergen-free environments, including in schools. So our commons guidance principle in this area took shape to provide a single-based process that our sector could adopt and make their own. Of course, we shouldn't forget the response to reaction, for example, by ensuring people have wide access to EpiPens and other treatments to prevent life-threatening incidents. And it's no good having the EpiPen in the school office if the dining room is at the other end of the school, and the dining room is the place that's likely to have an incident. So it's about making sure that the schools are aware that the EpiPen should be kept near to where the incident is most likely to happen. There are so many theories and studies available on why allergies are on the increase. And as I said at the beginning, I'm certainly less than qualified to offer any thoughts on these, other than to say that we're only beginning to understand the rise of food allergies. It's a subject that is ripe for more research because it can literally be a case of life and death. And we'll hear a little bit more from my colleague Rachel about some of the research that they're doing in NARF very shortly. So next slide, Andrew. When I set about developing the allergen guidance and RAP, I was absolutely guided by the thought that we have so many providers with each having their own process in place. And of course, this could be more easily managed, for example, in Wales, where there's a less fragmented service. But in England, in particular, we have so many different providers and an increasingly fragmented service with the breakdown of local authority-led contracts linked to the academisation of schools. My view and the view of the review group was that we needed a common process as the base of our provision to ensure a safe offer could be maintained for our children, despite the number of service providers in place. And then we hope that the LACA process could be adopted by DfE as a best practice guide. And of course, once they saw it, they did that, and it's on the allergens area on the DfE website in terms of food in schools. So next slide, please, Andrew. In 2024, we felt that the process had been in place for 4 years, so it would be best practice to do a review. So we drew together a team of professionals and reps from across the industry and got them to take a look at it. And certainly that was also as a result of we were getting questions from both the sector and from health professionals linked to what we were recommending and the fact that our process was being adopted broadly across the sector. We've also seen a greater alignment with NARF, the Natasha Allergens Research Foundation in recent years, and particularly since we built that relationship with Tanya and Ednan right at the beginning. And then we also wanted to make sure that we had some relevant case studies and evidence on the website. Some questions that came up were easily resolved, such as inclusivity. They were addressed. But my view and the view of the peer group review was that safeguarding trumps inclusivity every time. I've said it and you've heard me saying it before, there's nothing at all inclusive about following a white coffin into a church if we get it wrong. Therefore, caterers must always reference safety as the #1 priority when head teachers or governing bodies query our determination to make sure that this is absolutely adhered to for the for children in their schools. And I'm delighted that we've been able to continue and build on our relationship with NARF to promote safe provision across our whole food sector. So how did we do the review? Andrew, next slide. It was a review in 3 parts. First of all, we looked at each part of the provision that we've got on the website. So we looked at the guidance, tore it apart and pulled it back together again. We looked at the risk assessment process and asked, is it still fit for purpose? And then we built some case studies and evidence around that. So the outcome, again, Andrew, if you can just move on, was very much that actually we recognised that there was very minor updated needed in the guidance. And we've put a little bit in there about airborne allergens, which of course is linked to the risk assessment, which says that that needs further assessment in terms of school provision. The risk assessment process itself has been unchanged, and we have put 2 new case studies onto the website. And if there's anybody got anything else that they'd like us to include as a case study, please send that forward and we'll make sure that it's written up and can go on to there. And then finally, we are putting a new forward in there that NARF are actually going to write for us. So next slide, Andrew. Can I have the next slide, Andrew, please? We're now going to move on. We've got a panel discussion, which we've got 3 colleagues. Rachel Ellis, who is the Communications Director for NARF. Jacquie McPeake, who many of you will know well from JACS, her own company that particularly focuses on training in this area. And Megan Waring, Head of Nutrition for Caterlink, who was one of the peer group that did the review on the guidance and on the risk assessment process. I'll just move, before we move into that panel discussion, Andrew, I'll just go on to sort of the last slide and sum up sort of where I'm at. Back at the beginning of the session, I mentioned the rise in the number of allergen cases that we're seeing. What explains this? Well, experts have put forward a whole number of hypotheses, all of which need testing. A food allergy is caused by the immune system overreacting to certain foods, releasing chemicals that cause symptoms such as itchy skin, hives, a swollen face, eyes or lips, breathing difficulties, and even cardiac arrest. In short, food substances cause the immune system to malfunction. And if your immune response gets triggered by the wrong things, it can actually kill you by trying to protect you. And I guess that we saw that, didn't we, in recent years through COVID. But one possible explanation for the increase could be the rise of the Western diet, which is high in ultra-processed foods. A 2022 study of nearly 3,000 children and 4,500 adults in the US suggested that consuming ultra-processed foods was associated with allergy symptoms in children and adolescents. Perhaps the full detrimental impacts of ultra-processed foods are only now being recognised as data is collected and analysed. So in January, please watch out because we're launching our ultra-processed food review as an add-on to our allergens process. And I anticipate that professionals from across the sector will be looking to join that review, along with some academics that have got a real interest in this. I'm not for a minute making links to allergens in the ultra-processed food review, and I'm certainly not proposing a ban or a causal link, but we do need to understand and quantify what we're serving and how this can contribute to the safety and care of children at our counters. Thank you for listening to me. As I said at the beginning, there's infinitely more qualified and interesting people who can talk about allergies than I am. So over to our panel discussion, please. If Rachel, Megan and Jacquie can switch on their cameras. And can we just start with a very brief introduction? Megan, you're on the screen, so I'll pick on you first. If you just do an introduction, who you are and what your role is, please.
Yeah, of course. So hi everyone, Megan Waring. I'm Director of Nutrition at Caterlink. So I head up the nutrition team and we are very much responsible for ensuring that menus and recipes are compliant, managing the special diets and allergies, which as everyone knows is a huge part of the role, and also undertaking some public health projects and education sessions across the business. So we're always very busy, but it's a good busy. We like it.
Cheers. Thank you. Jacquie, I can see you next on my screen, so.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Jacquie McPeake. I know a few of you already. So my business is JACS Limited. So I provide food allergy training, audits and support to businesses, schools, hospitals, and anybody that'll have me.
Thanks, Jacquie. And finally, Rachel.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Ellis. I'm the Director of Communications at the Natasha Allergy Research Foundation. So the charity was set up 5 years ago by Nadim and Tanya Ednan Laperouse after their daughter Natasha died when she was just 15 from anaphylaxis. And we work really across 3 kind of key areas, which is education, campaigning and research. And my role is to kind of get the message out there about the work that we're doing and obviously kind of really drive home the message that food allergies are not a choice, but they are actually a serious medical condition.
Right, thank you. Megan, at the beginning of, I'll start with you, and I've got a handful of questions that I'm going to pose to you each so that we can kick this off. But what I would ask is that if anybody has got any specific questions for the panel, in sort of the next few minutes, if you could load them on, and Andrew, perhaps you can flag them to us as we sort of move through this. At the beginning of my slides, I outlined some recent stats. Are these borne out in what you're seeing in your schools, Megan?
Yeah, these absolutely sort of reflect what we're seeing in our schools. And I also chair the National School Food Nutrition Network, which is a network of around 60 nutritionists across the school food industry. And interestingly, one of the conversations we had in our latest meeting was around the rise in allergies, both in sort of the sheer volume of pupils that we're seeing that have an allergy or an intolerance, but also a rise in pupils that have multiple allergies, you know, even 10 or more different allergies, and how complex those are. Interestingly, it was also noted by in that meeting that I think it is the year that the babies that were born during COVID started school. So I don't know if that does have anything to do with it, but I think across the industry, every single caterer has said there's been a huge increase this September of children with multiple allergies.
And Megan, what impact's that having on your service, particularly on the workload for your nutritionists? Because I guess that you're having to look at much more in the way of specialist diets. And, you know, is the LACA risk assessment process and guidance something that you're using across your business?
Yeah, so it's caused a huge impact on the workload. I think we created about 1,800 different variations of special diet menu for the latest term, but also that then trickles down and puts more pressure on the operations teams that have to manage that out in sites, but also obviously mainly the kitchen teams as well. And I think the number one priority for any business should be whether there's an increased risk to the pupil by having so many variations of special diet within a kitchen. And that is something that within Caterlink we're working hard to review, especially since this sort of latest September and such an increase. We'd absolutely use both the LACA guidance and the LACA risk analysis within Caterlink. And it's really useful to drive those conversations with schools and clients around what safety does look like and that everyone plays a part. And the sites we see that have really successful allergen management is where there is a really joined up approach, and every stakeholder has sort of the knowledge and the involvement that it takes. So it's a really good starting point and a tool for discussion. Absolutely. Great,
thank you. I know that it's something that probably is the MD's nightmare, and it's the thing that probably more than anything else keeps them awake at night. And I guess that with the increased volume comes an increase in the number of near miss incidents that we pick up. And Jacquie, I know that that's something that you're working on, and you know, sort of the near miss campaign suggests that incidents should be recorded and properly investigated. So in your mind, Jacquie, what type of incidents should be included in that kind of near miss recording?
Yes, so last year, a colleague Caroline Benjamin and I did a lot of work on the near miss campaign, just to kind of find out what was out there. We worked with a student who was in a family hospitality, and it varied very much across the industry. Schools actually were doing very well, I have to say they were recording it, but I think any incident is a learning opportunity. So if something goes wrong, it means perhaps there's something different in the procedure needs to be looked at. Maybe staff haven't been trained, or procedures have changed or need changing. So certainly it's something that needs to be considered within the HACCP routine, food safety management, because previous to Pret a Manger didn't record incidents, and customers were actually telling them they couldn't see the ingredients in the sandwiches, but they didn't respond to that feedback. Now they do. They have they do respond and react. But it's a learning opportunity. So anything that could have caused an incident needs to be recorded and looked at. It may be very small, or it may be quite a major one. But then you can see the trends and see what's happening. And I think it's something that people don't look at, and they just assume that, oh, well, you know, nothing happened, it's okay. Well, it's not okay, because next time something could happen.
Yeah. So I guess that's a real benefit of coming to review the near miss reports that are coming in. It's not just something that's like you think, well, it's a near miss, so there's one that we've escaped. It's actually look at where those misses are happening. And I guess that then, Rachel, links to sort of education. And at the beginning you said that, you know, the education programme is something that is one of the three areas that NARF are particularly keen to work on. So I hear that you've got a new education programme coming out very soon. So do you want to just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's right. So we've been working on this programme for about 2 years. So it's been a long time in the coming, and education obviously is something that's really close to our hearts. I know Nadeem and Tanya, they had a lot of problems when Natasha was at school for people to really understand her food allergies, and she did have both sort of near misses and reactions at school because people hadn't like fully understood. What we are doing is we want everybody to sort of feel more confident about food allergies in schools. So that's not just the caterers, but like the teachers and the pupils with food allergies, and also their friends or their classmates as well. And so what we're doing is we've put together a whole kind of program of resources called Allergy School, which is launching in January. And that will be films for children to watch, which kind of explain in very kind of simple terms kind of what a food allergy is. And then there'll be kind of lesson plans, assembly packs for teachers. And the idea is that we want like children that have food allergies to be able to fully participate in school. And we think that by their classmates and with teachers being more confident to deal with food allergies and really understand what they are, and that they are a serious condition, that it will really help children to have a more sort of positive experience at school, that all children will be able to. So we're very excited about it all, and we're nearly there. We're just doing the final touches at the moment and getting everything ready. But the key thing is that all the resources are completely free. They are free to everybody. Every school in the country is invited to download these resources, and you can pre-register now on our website for these resources. So please, if you're interested, do pre-register, and then you'll get an email when they go live, and you'll be able to download everything for free. Perfect.
Thank you. Megan, I guess that, you know, you said that education is part of your work, and it's about, I think that I know that for a fact that you do a lot of work with children of that nature in terms of educating children about allergies and about food in general. But how specifically in your sort of business do you train your frontline teams in delivering safe food to the children in your schools?
Yep, so we have lots of different trainings around health and safety, including allergens. So we have yearly allergy training online that they have to complete within the first week that they're in the business. And we also do training Tuesdays once a month that focus on any high risk issues that we notice. All our staff do sort of level 2 health and safety and food safety, and our managers do level 3 health and safety and food safety as well. And above that, we have a lot of different audits out within the business. So we have audits that our operations teams do on a termly basis, and also our third-party external auditor, Navitas, go into every school every year. And with both of those audits, any issues that are found or any concerns that they might have, they can coach on the spot and do some sort of on-the-spot coaching with those around anything as well.
Okay, and I guess that audit is also about picking up the piece that Jacquie was talking about, which was about the near miss reporting. And like, are you reporting that near miss, and are you finding a benefit to pulling in that data on near miss so that revisits the training around specific areas, or is it not a training issue? Is it something that you're...
No, definitely. So the way near misses work within our business is they're recorded on sort of our internal reporting system, and the operations teams record those, but then they are picked up by health and safety teams, and they're each individually investigated. And then we report those back at exec level on monthly meetings. As we've sort of said over and over again, safety is sort of our number one KPI within the business. And I think that what those audits do and what those trainings do can identify places where those near misses are happening and enable us to look into what caused that near miss, and if there's any learnings that we can take forward and improve.
Okay,
on.
that's great. And I guess that your volume allows you to do that. And I suppose that where there's greater concern is that in perhaps some single site operations or single site schools, and Jacquie, I'm sort of probably looking at you a wee bit for this, because it moves away from sort of the idea that, the corporates have probably got it fairly well handled, but the single site schools, it's about how the training is given to them, and are they doing the level of near miss reporting? Is it, common practice across the more of the less supported schools in terms of management support? I'm probably
it's probably not. Yeah, probably not. But I think people are afraid to report it because there's a kind of blame culture, particularly in kind of retail and hospitality. Generally, they don't do it as much as schools. But we had a seminar with EHO people who joined us, and we had a really good discussion. And they said they would rather see reports of near misses, what happened, what the outcome was, and anything that changed, because they know it happens. Because we're all human and things happen, and they would rather that there was a system in place rather than saying, "Oh, we've had no near misses," even if it's a small near miss. that they nearly took that wrong meal. It, what would have happened if they had taken it? So yeah, I think the smaller schools maybe they don't include it because perhaps they think it's not relevant or not necessary. But if it becomes part of your kind of standard reporting system, it becomes second nature. That you should report it and respond.
And I guess that, some of that is coming, isn't it? Because of the fact that we're providing in schools so many variations on a theme. Like you might be doing a macaroni cheese that's dairy free, or a macaroni cheese that, you've got that same core menu, because the schools are guiding us towards that inclusivity route. And then it's very easy for the wrong macaroni cheese to go to the wrong child. And they're the kind of near misses that I think are our reportable ones that, sort of we should be really sort of perhaps pushing something on that. So it may be worth us putting a little bit about near miss and the near miss campaign onto the guidance notes. So I'll pick up with you after the after this webinar to see what we can do in terms of just adding something else into that guidance, if it's something that our members can benefit from. If I want to come back to you, Rachel, on something that you said, because I know that NARF are at the front of allergy research, and I talked about those big numbers at the beginning. Like 1 in 12 children, not 1 in 2 children, having a food allergy, and I know that you're really at the front of that, because we spoke a while ago now about sort of the work that you're doing, particularly with the NHS. So can you tell us a little bit more about the research that NARF are currently funding and the direction of travel that's going in, perhaps?
Sure, yeah. So I think we're all agreed that sort of allergy services, that health services are very kind of are not really up to scratch, and what you can get access to if you have a food allergy varies massively around the country depending on where you live. And I think we really wanted to kind of come up with a, for our first research project, we wanted to come up with a study that would kind of really positively impact as many allergic lives as possible right now, and that involves looking at new treatments. So the Natasha clinical trial is what we're calling it, was launched in May 2022, and that's the first kind of medical research to be funded by the charity. And that is a £2.7 million trial, which is looking at oral immunotherapy as a treatment for children and young people with food allergies. So this trial is looking at children aged 2 to 23 with peanut and cow's milk allergies. And the idea is that once the children have been screened, they are then given a very sort of tiny dose of the allergen to which they're allergic to. And when they can tolerate it, then that's gradually increased over a period of months. And the kind of really fantastic thing about this trial is that instead of using kind of pharmaceutical products, it's using everyday foods. But obviously they have to be taken under strict medical supervision. But the idea is that what we're hoping is that the results will show that it's cost effective, and there'll be enough evidence for this to be introduced on the NHS, because at the moment this type of treatment isn't available on the NHS, and people are traveling, to the States and all over the world to try and get this sort of treatment. And so that's what we're hoping for. We've heard there are definitely some children on the trial that are doing really well, people that have had anaphylaxis to peanuts and are now able to eat sort of 6 peanuts a day, but we don't know the full results, and we won't get those till 2027. But the trial's going really well. There's now 9 NHS sites across England and Scotland that are running the trial. And the great thing is that because there's sort of training staff in each of those centres, how to offer oral immunotherapy, it means that if it does get approved, there'll be the staff in place ready and trained to offer it. And we should finish recruiting all the children by, I think, early next year. So then, we're well on our way. So it's very exciting, and just fingers crossed it will be the evidence that NICE will then, accept it, and it will be available in the NHS so that everyone can benefit.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Something so positive is coming through now from the establishment of NARF, and we think of the tragedy that happened back in 2016, and it seems like something in the distant past now, but Natasha's still really alive and sort of delivering some great change in the world. So thank you to NARF for pushing forward with that, because that's the kind of innovative and needed research that we need to see in this area, because I guess that, and I come back to Megan, you've come back onto screen at this point, the whole sort of rise in incidences is huge for us. And, it's something always coming out next, and we think back just weeks ago to the, sort of the mustard scare, and what impact did that have on you? Because you had your 1800 special diets all written, and suddenly you would have to go back and rewrite them.
Yeah, so obviously it had a huge impact across the business. So firstly, we sort of set up an internal working group, and that really helped because we could coordinate sort of regular communications across the schools. Within our primary schools, we've got a really strict sort of supplier list and buy-in list. So we were really quickly able to lock that down and delist anything that had got mustard or may contain mustard in. And we were able to start changing those menus then. And we obviously had the FSA notice up in our sites. But yeah, it's not easy when you've got 1800 different special diets to sort of do that with a couple of days notice. I think it came out on a Friday, and we were sort of scrambling to try and make it work for the Monday. But yeah, huge impact, and obviously it won't be the last instance of something like that happening. So it was a good learning curve anyway.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, I think that there were 2 words you said there, may contain. I think that you know, the wise sort of way to accept may contain is might contain or probably does contain, therefore treat it as though it does, and
Yeah.
just exclude it if that's what's needed. So I think that sort of, are there any questions from the audience, Andrew?
Not at the moment, Stephen. I think you're comprehensively covering it at the moment.
Okay. Well, I think that we're probably drawing to a close. I think that I know that you've got this. This seems a very serious subject to be sort of talking about on a Christmas webinar, but do you know what? We're all likely to have a Christmas cake with some marzipan on it. So do just ask whoever's coming to your house to eat your Christmas cake or sniff at your nut basket. Whatever their allergies might be before you end up with a disaster on your hands. And thank you to Rachel, to Megan and Jackie for joining us this afternoon. I hope that you're able to stay on and enjoy Anita's quiz. And I think we're moving back to Judith to talk about the grab and go now.
Thank you, Stephen, for a very informative session, and thank you to the panel as well. I think there's some really interesting details in there. I was particularly interested in hearing about the data in terms of the number of children that are currently with allergies. So I know within our own local authority, you know, we're seeing substantial increases. So thanks for a really great session. So I'm going to hand over to Andrew now to talk about the grab and go.
Thank you, Judith. So the grab and go competition, entry for the grab and go competition in 2025, the final of which will be at the main event in July, will open on the 6th of January. So as a little intro to the 2025 competition, we have a short video from Angela McCurry, who was the 2024 winner, on her dish. So sit back, enjoy. The sound on this is a little low, so you may need to turn the sound up on your computer. And I will just share this with you now.
Hi, I'm Angela McCurry on this year's Grab and Go by School Grid, and today I'm going to show you how to make the Jamaican patty, which is vegan and egg-free. I hope you're going to enjoy it. So here we go. Okay, so first of all, what you would need to do is to cut and chop, but to save time, I've prepared it for you earlier. So we have, first of all, we have 100 grams of chopped very finely onions, and the reason we do that is obviously to help it cook quicker, but also for the children, it's a better texture. We're putting in some oil, and we're just going to fry off the onions for you. Okay. In with that, I'm going to use of garlic puree, okay, to give it some flavour, and then just let that sweat down. So normally I would let that sweat down and go quite translucent before I popped in the vegetables. Okay. Now the vegetables we're using today, we have some very finely chopped courgettes, okay, some sweet potato, very, very finely chopped again, and some spinach, okay. So that's all going into this pan. Now, I'm going to let that sweat down, and as that's cooking, and because it takes a bit of time, I'm going to leave that go. And when it gets all cooked through, we would add, on top of that, we would add some lentils. So this is where the protein comes from, and it actually gives it the texture as well. So there's 200 grams of lentils, so that's going in there as well. Okay. Right, that's going to take about 10 minutes in that pan, but we need some flavours. So to add some flavour, we've got some black pepper, okay, 2 milligrams, quite a bit really, to be honest, for this size dish. Okay, and then we have 2 2 milligrams of cumin. It's quite a hot, spicy flavour really. But the children here like flavours. Yeah, so anyway, so we've got ginger as well, just give it that warm. So that's all coming in. Right. Mixing it all up. Can you see that? Stop. I put the water in there already just to melt it down a bit. Right. So we're going to let that just tick over, and as that's ticking over, I do need to put the tomato puree in though, sorry, I'll put the tomato puree, but it's fine, just pop it in. Just let it cook out. Yeah, as that's cooking out, I'm going to turn it right down. There you go. Then I'm going to show you how to make the pastry. Now the pastry is flour, just plain flour, and butter, which I've chopped up earlier. Okay. And then all you do with those is mix them together, but to give it the colour, we're putting in turmeric. Okay. So you pop the turmeric in, and then you chop up the butter small, pop that in, and then you mix it as if you're making fine pastry. Okay. Now when you do that, what will happen is it will come out just like that. Okay. So then you've got something that resembles breadcrumbs. So you make a little well in the middle, and you would put just enough cold water. Now I like to use my hands for this because I've got more control and I can feel if it's coming away from the edges, you know, if it's going to be the right texture. Okay, but you can do it in a mixer if you're making it en masse. Okay, there's nothing to stop you. So yeah, so I can feel the, you know, the absorption of the flour, because I find that flours tend to, you know, if you find a recipe that tells you a certain amount, that it can be changed because it can be drier or it can be, you know, a little bit more absorbed, take more moisture. Okay, so as you can see, it's starting to come away from the edge of the dish. Okay, and then we're just going to make it into one ball. It's going to stick quite a lot now. Okay. All right. I think that's just a tad more. Now, pastry, for me, it's a simple thing, but it just doesn't like a lot of work. And that's what I found. You know, it just doesn't like a lot of touching. So, once that's brought together, I would then let that rest for a while. Okay. So I'm going to leave that over there just to rest for a while. Okay, and while that's doing, yep, that's coming on. Okay. And then all that's left then is to build the patties. Right. So, to build the patties, and again, here's what I made earlier, because this pastry is already melted. It's already. There you go. Got a nice golden colour, isn't it? So, I'm going to take that off now, and then when it's finished, this is what it's looked like. Okay, and what you can do with that is you can leave it to cool right down. I would normally take it out of there, put it on some ink, and just let it cool right down. Okay, then we're going to make the pastry. Now to make the pastry, just a little flick of flour on your side, not too much, because otherwise you're going to add to the mixture. Okay. And then just a little bit more on my hands, just so it's a bit moister than I thought. And we're going to make like a shape like a ball. Okay? So you just roll away from you and turn. That's it. Roll away from you and turn. Might need a little bit more flour, but try not to put too much in because then you're going to change the recipe. A little bit of turn. And see, I'll just reshape it as I'm going round, you know. So there you go. Okay. So you want it nice and thin because otherwise it won't cook properly, it will be doughy, yeah. The best pastry is always the thin ones, I always find anyway. And there we go. So when it gets to about, I'd say, there you go, very thin, as thin as you can go really, I suppose, without being translucent. Okay, and then what you would do, I'd use a plate, one of our school ones, and just pop it there, okay? And then I would cut around the edge, okay? And once I've cut around the edge, let me just grab my knife, sorry, yeah. Just cut around the edge. This is a nice circular. Okay. Pick that up a bit. There you go. Now to not have to move it as much as I need to, as I, you know, I'd pop it on the dish now, like this. There you go. And then I put my packet full of all them lovely goodness, you know, the tasty veggies and bits and pieces and lentils and everything. Now, this is a vegan dish, so normally with pastry you would, you know, someone egg wash it or milk it, but we're not going to do that today. We are just going to put water around the edge and then fold it in, okay? So normally you put water around the edge and fold it in, press it over, and then we're just going to make a little pattern along here with a fork, okay? And just literally press the fork. You can be as inventive as you like, you can do little twirls or whatever you want to. And then that would simply go into the oven for 20 minutes, okay? Now, when it's finished, this is how it looks, okay? There you go. And I'll just show you what it looks like in the middle as well. So, there you go. And that is it. The vegan Jamaican patty from Nourish Catering.
Okay, there we go. There was a demo from Angela. So back over to you, Judith.
Thanks, Andrew. So yes, really great video there. Well done, Angela, for doing that. So the serious bit of the webinar is over, and we've now got Anita Brown's infamous Christmas quiz. So over to you, Anita.